Hi. So, hi everyone, and welcome to this 1 hour webinar with Gibson Biddle. The title of the webinar is Netflix 2020 Product Strategy, and Gibson will introduce 5 different strategy frameworks to enable product leaders to define their product strategy. And personally, I'm really excited to learn more about tactics and tools and methods regarding product strategy. And I'd like to briefly introduce myself. My name is Marcus Castenfors, and I'm a product discovery coach at CRISP. And CRISP is an agile product development consulting agency in Stockholm, Sweden. And with me today, I have the absolute pleasure of introducing you to tonight's speaker, Gibson Biddle. And Gibson is a seasoned teacher, speaker, and workshop host, running similar kind of webinars and workshops and speaking engagement around the globe. And he has vast experience in product management. He was VP of product at Netflix from 2005 to 2010. He was also the chief product officer at Chegg, a textbook rental company that went public in 2013. So without much further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Gibson. The floor is yours.
Thanks a ton, Marcus. Thanks for, I heard the weather's gorgeous in Stockholm today, so thanks for being with us online, and thank you, Istanbul, for being here as well. I just want to take you back to my early career. This is the first hit product I ever built. This is like circa 94 or 5, was called Elmo's Preschool. And I was the co-founder in a company called Creative Wonders, and built that company up and then sold it to this gentleman that, if you some can recognize him, this is Kevin O'Leary. He's Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank. And so sold my first startup to him, the learning company, and then helped the learning company to grow. We built Reader Rabbit software and Oregon Trail, and then went on to sell the learning company to Mattel. And at the time, this is probably 98, 99. This is one of the biggest deals. We sold the company for $4 billion. That's how Kevin O'Leary made his money. But there was a really bad outcome. We had built kids software, and it was almost like a fad. Like you couldn't get your kids on the computer early enough. And what happened is the next year, the value of the company just plummeted. So we had sold the company for $4 billion. And the very next year, Mattel threw the whole organization out of the building and took a $3.6 billion loss. So this was a disaster. And from it, the key learning for me was the importance of building hard to copy advantage. And you'll hear that phrase again and again. In the first half of my career, I did a bunch of stuff, I built a lot of stuff. And then the back half of my career, mainly with learnings from Netflix, I learned about the importance of strategy and building hard to copy advantage, and frankly, being less competitive, which is a really interesting dynamic. This is Reed Hastings. He's the CEO of Netflix, continues to be there. Most folks outside the States don't know, but Netflix began as a DVD by mail company. That's how we started. And then in 2007, we launched what is called today streaming. We called it Watch Instantly then. And then obviously it's grown up all around the world. And Marcus gave my background. The key thing is I joined Netflix in the DVD by mail era, and then helped it to grow from about 1 million to 20 million members, and went to my next startup, which is called Chegg, which came first, the chicken or the egg. And that's a company focused on helping students save billions of dollars renting textbooks instead of buying. And they also have Chegg Study, which is an online help service. And I'm largely a teacher. I teach at Stanford and INSEAD and do this kind of stuff 120 times a year. All right, so this is called Netflix's 2020 Product Strategy. There's really 3 chapters to this. I'm going to share with you a few tools and models and frameworks that I apply in thinking about product strategy. And then I'm going to pretend that I'm the head of product today at Netflix, and I'm going to share a facsimile of what I'm guessing the product strategy, how it would be communicated. And then I want to share in the last chapter how product strategy, these ideas are applied to your day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month with these 3 what would you do Netflix cases. How you doing, Marcus?
Doing great. Excited to hear about the frameworks.
Okay, I'll go. So first I want to start with a definition of strategy. So Strategy, this is Hamilton Helmer. He's a professor of economics of all things, but he describes it as a route to continuing power in a significant market. So if I take you back to 200 BC, at a time where you had these riches in the Far East in China, and you're trying to deliver them to the Mediterranean and then on to London, there were lots of explorers and discoverers trying to figure out the route. And should it be by sea or should it be by land? And what I'm sharing here with you right now, this is a photo of the Silk Road. And that Silk Road became a very significant commerce market. And it's incredibly hard to copy. And because of that, it has continuing power. This section was actually protected by the Great Wall of China. And I just love this definition of strategy. And the reason that I'm focused on strategy is because of the ability it gives us as product leaders. It's the most important and the hardest job, frankly, the ability to communicate an inspired vision of the future. And the other thing I love about it is it helps to blend both discipline and chaos. So chaos is actually required in this. You're inventing the future. There's lots of experiments and let's try this and a lot of work and a lot of don't work. And strategy provides just a little bit of discipline to help measure your progress, what's working, what's not, and to give a little bit of focus to it. And it has a nice way of balancing those two forces. And then strategy helps form these hypotheses, and you'll hear this phrase quite a few times, to delight customers in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways, where margin is just a fancy way to say build business or profit. But that's the way I think about product strategies. They are hypotheses about how you hoped to delight customers in these hard to copy, margin enhancing ways. And then as product leaders, we can do anything, we just can't do everything. So you might have 100 ideas about what you think will be better to make Netflix a better service, but it helps you to get alignment on maybe those top 10 things, the things that might have the most leverage for you. And then at the end of the day, you can communicate a plan. I continue to use a 4-quarter rolling roadmap that helps people understand how stuff fits together and give a fuzzy vision about how things will progress over time. So I want to share 3 frameworks. So what's going to happen is I'm going to share these ideas. I'm going to go a little deeper into this DHM model. But then when I do my mock product strategy in the 2nd chapter, I just want you to sort of recognize, oh, that's the GLEE model. Oh, that's the GEM model. So this first GLEE model, it's an acronym for, initially with a startup, I'm trying to figure out how to help it get big. You know, in the case of Netflix, get big on DVDs, and then lead a next chapter at Netflix that was expansion in streaming. And then how can you expand even further? And in the case of Netflix, that's an original content. And this encourages you to think big and long-term. And this is a tool that I use for doing a product vision. In fact, it helps you to think out 5, 10, 15, 20 years. The GEM model is all about prioritizing 3 forces: growth, engagement, and monetization. And I'll use it as a tool to help build alignment within a company. I can walk into a company and ask, hey, what's more important for you? Growth, engagement. Engagement is a proxy for product quality. How good is your product? And then monetization is essentially economic efficiency. How efficient are you at generating profit? And then I'll go more into depth on the DHM, that delight in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways. And these are the purpose of each of these models. The first is all about helping to articulate a long-term product vision. The second is about cross-functional alignment. If you can agree across the whole company that, for instance, growth is first, engagement or product quality is second, and monetization is third, now you've got everybody literally on the same page across marketing, technology, product, content, finance, whatever. And then the DHM model helps to form hypotheses to compete in the long term. So I just want to go a little into depth on this DHM model, because it really, for me, defines the product leader's job. Your job is to delight customers in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways. This is my simplest articulation of the job of product leadership. And I want you to think for a minute about what delights you about Netflix. And I'm assuming most or many are Netflix members. And here's a list of stuff. And I suspect if you look at it, you say, yeah, that's why I use it. That's why I enjoy it. And it took us many years to learn and figure out all these things. And then margin enhancement, again, the fancy word of how to make money or profit. The company actually started a la carte, which meant you would pay to rent a DVD. It was bad service. All startups suck at the beginning. It took like 5 days for your DVDs to get delivered in the mail. But then we bet the company on this all-you-can-eat subscription. And that's what it is today. You're all paying the same each month for as much watching as you can. And that was a fundamental innovation. And then you probably noticed there's ongoing price and plan testing. This is a driver of the margin. And you probably noticed that overall your price has been slowly going up, largely because Netflix has been trying to figure out how to deliver enough profit to invest more in original content, which most folks enjoy. And so I want to just share with you a subtlety of a big driver of economic performance in Netflix. And this is the idea that they're really good at right-sizing original content investment. So Netflix, because it's got personalization data for today for 183 million folks, it predicted that about 3/4 of its members would enjoy Stranger Things. And because of that, at the time it was 100 million members would enjoy it. They were willing to spend $500 million in this series. For perspective, and that tracks with our pre-poll, I think it was about 3/4. And then now I'm sharing my bizarre taste. This is called BoJack Horseman. It's essentially an adult cartoon. And I noticed that only 25% had watched it. But in this case, Netflix was able to predict, using all of its personalization data, how many people would enjoy watching BoJack. And at the time, it was about 20 million people. It was about 1/4 of the folks, exactly what I saw in that pre-poll. And because of that, they were willing to invest 100 million. And just think of this huge advantage that Netflix has for understanding the movie tastes of people all over the world. They actually want to deliver all content. They just want to make sure that they spend the right amount of money on each title. For me, I enjoy watching Everest climbing documentaries. There's 1 million people like me. And because of that, they invested 5 million. And this is how right sizing works, but it's a huge driver of margin. So now I have a question for all of you using Slido. And the question is, what makes Netflix hard to copy? And you can tell I had that horrible experience, selling companies and then having it all fall apart because we failed to build hard to copy advantage. So the question I have of everyone here is, what makes Netflix hard to copy? Put another way, if I gave you $500 million to start a competitor, what would be hard? What would be hard about competing with Netflix? What is the hard to copy advantage that Netflix has? And if you don't, I love it. If you haven't tried Slido yet, you can just hold up your phone as though you're taking a photo, and a link will magically pop up. You can click on that, and then you can participate like crazy. This is where I do that Slido shaming, because I can see 23 people have answered, and we've got about 115 folks online. How you doing, Marcus?
Doing great. And I see a lot of interesting things here. So data as the biggest one, but also the user base, the network effect, and the focus on personalization, and obviously also content. And there's more coming, 42 people. Yeah. Well done, everyone.
Yeah. They respond to Slido shaming. And then also you can enter multiple one-word answers. So we see the clouds around personalization, data, content, original content. Now I'm fishing. I see the brand. Yay, brand. And then I heard you say something about network. Marcus, what were you keying off of?
The network effect, just the user base. So
and you see that? Somebody gave. And so what is the network effect at Netflix? That's what I'm curious about.
So you have, I don't know how many users subscribe to Netflix.
183 million people.
Yeah, so that's a lot of people to experiment on, right?
Yeah, now the definition of network effect is each person adds more value. I mean, certainly that's true of Facebook, but is it really true? Do you care how many members are part of Netflix?
Not really,
Do
no.
those members make your life better?
No, but I was thinking from the Netflix angle, just to have that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
Base.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Okay, well, let's punch. I love the I can see the Tiger King references, by the way. That's awesome. Good. Okay, so the only thing I was fishing for, so I loved it that product leaders saw the advantage of brand. I saw the red logo as well. We were trying to build this idea where the brand promise was movie enjoyment made easy. And then lots of examples in the word cloud of unique technology. The biggest is probably personalization. And then the network effect that I was fishing for, Narcus, was actually basically every device in the world that has a screen is magically enabled so you can watch Netflix anytime and anywhere. And that was the device ecosystem. That was the network effect that we built over time. It took us a long time to get there. And then I saw lots of the content, original content, Tiger King. That, I put that in the bucket called economies of scale. So because Netflix has 183 million members, that just gives them power. And so, for instance, they can spend $20 billion a year on content, where poor Amazon can only spend $8 billion. I just love saying that. Or Disney Plus, Hulu are spending $3 to $5 billion, and Apple's spending $2 billion. And so just being big gives you a huge advantage, that economy of scale. And so the way to think about all this is, if you're a product leader, you're trying to create these theories about how you'll delight customers in these hard to copy, margin enhancing ways. So these are all the experiments that Netflix, these high level experiments, these are high level product strategies that Netflix has done over the years. And with the benefit of hindsight, I put the ones up top, I put a green notation because those ones managed to do it all three of those components. And the ones in the yellows, you can see they were successful, but not all. And then look at all the red. Those are all failed experiments. Social. Our theory was you'd enjoy connecting with your friends, getting movie ideas from your friends. We pounded on that idea for 4 years and it failed. And then at the very bottom, I put some of the new experiments that I'll talk a little bit about. But Netflix is essentially doing interactive films. They're trying to compete with games, if you will, like Fortnite. And then you'll begin to see a lot of experimentation around AR and VR. And it's not known if that will work or not, which is why I put the question marks. And I wrote a series called How to Define Your Product Strategy. Marcus can drop the link into the chat for that. But I really just try to make these ideas open, accessible. I don't collect email addresses. I don't do advertising. Nothing bad will happen. But I walk you through lots of different tools and models and frameworks that helps you to think about product strategy. The NPS for this series is like 84, which is, I call that dance on rooftops, really high. All right, Marcus, how you doing?
Excellent. Thank you.
Are you drinking a beer, just so I know? Is it beer time?
Sorry,
there?
What was that?
Are you drinking a beer? Is it beer time there?
No, not yet.
Darn, it's coffee time here.
Close. All right. Close.
So now I'm going to pretend that I'm the head of product at Netflix today, which I'm not. I'm enjoying my life of flexibility and freedom. Imagine it's January of 2020, and I'm standing up in front of the company at an all-hands meeting, and I want to communicate the plan, the strategy. So, hello, everyone. As you know, we've been very clear about what the product wants to be when it grows up. This is the positioning of the product. Netflix is a movie subscription service that delivers fast, easy entertainment in a friendly, straightforward way. And obviously, I think we've done a great job at delivering on that. And the brand promise that where our marketing partners want to tattoo to my forearm is this one simple idea that movie enjoyment made easy. And we don't use that language outside the building with our customers, but this is the product that for decades now we've been trying to build. And the product vision, I can take you back where we've come from and also into the future. So we started with this concept of getting big on DVD and then endeavored to lead streaming starting in January of 2007. And then once we were a digital service and didn't have to worry about delivering DVDs by mail, we could expand to the whole world. We're really trying to take stories from all around the world and deliver them all around the world today. And then with the success of House of Cards in 2013, we started to focus more and more on original content. And then this begs the question, you can see, you know, the increments are going like 5 and 7 years. Like, what's next? The original content is still in its early days, believe it or not. But what's going to be the chapter of life after that? And I just want to tell you the current theory and hypothesis. We don't know if this is the answer, but the fuzzy vision is 5 or 10 or 15 years out. The next big thing will be interactive stories. And many of you might have tried Black Mirror's Bandersnatch. It is an interactive story. Or some of you may have noticed that just last week, there's an interactive version of The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, where you can help drive the story along by making choices. And so this is early days. This is the experimentation, but it's the, you know, one of our experiments in the next big chapter for the company. And of course, I'm in product, and we believe in metrics. And our high-level engagement metric, the one that measures, is our product getting better over time, is monthly retention. And at startup, 10% of our members would cancel each month. And in 2005, about 5% would cancel each month. And today, that number is about 2%. 2% cancel each month, mainly because they don't have money in their account, or maybe it's a gorgeous sunny day and they shouldn't be binge watching. But this is the proxy metric that we use to define overall product quality. And just from going from 10% to 5% to 2%, you know, obviously strong value along the way. How did we do that? It was through all those high-level green strategies that I shared with you just a few moments ago. Those things that delight customers in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways. I also spent time in my first 2 weeks of the year arm wrestling with my marketing partners and my content partners, trying to answer the question, how should we prioritize these 3 forces? Growth, engagement, and monetization. And as a team across the company, we decided that the most important thing we're going to focus on was achieving 20% year-over-year member growth. And then second was to try to drive more economic efficiency, drive lifetime value from $170 up to maybe $180, which would be huge. What we're really trying to do is make more profit so that we can invest even more money in original content, because that's what our customers want more of. And then it pains me, but we've put engagement third. It doesn't mean that we're not going to focus on building a better product, but the reality is that 2%, only 2% are canceling each month. It just means that there's not quite as much opportunity as there are in these other areas. And these priorities may change over time. This is our best guess of how to prioritize these 3 forces over the next 3 to 6 months. And then there's about 6 or 7 total strategies, but I've listed 4 of them on the left for you. These are the theories about how we hope to delight customers in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways. Look down the left-hand side, you see watching experience. And then we have a proxy metric for that. We have a high-level engagement metric and retention, but that's really hard to move and hard to measure, and it's hard to prove in an A/B test that you moved it. So we have proxy metrics for each of these strategies on the left. And the proxy for watching experience is the percentage of customers who watch at least 40 hours in a month. And that's easier to measure and easier to change. And there are some projects to the right: ultra high def, custom playback speed, shared viewing via Netflix Party, lip sync algorithms that magically turn this into 40 languages within a few hours, each story from around the world. And I call this SMT model. You see the strategy on the left, a metric that measures each of those strategies, and the tactics are projects that map against those strategies. And this is the SMT framework. And then this is the 4-quarter rolling roadmap. You can see those same strategies on the left, and then I'm just trying to give you a sense of how the projects will play out of time. And so below, if you look at watching experience on the left, you can see the projects out to the right. So you see the shared viewing, AKA Netflix Party. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Custom playback speed, should you let customers speed up and slow down? The lip sync. So this is how it will progress over time. And I'm just trying to communicate how all this stuff fits together. This is the plan. I'm very confident about the activities in Q2. And then frankly, we're going to learn so much in Q2 that the plans for quarter 3, 4, and Q1 of next year may change. I don't view this as a commitment. It's a fuzzy vision of how things will play out over time. So with that, I'll say thank you. And now I'm going to drop out of my role as the faux VP of product at Netflix And what I want to do is talk about some of those cases I lightly introduced in the warm-up. And my intent is to help you to think about how product strategy informs these day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month decisions about what to do or what not to do. How goes it, Marcus?
It's great. It's going to be interesting to hear about the specific cases. And I mean, the SMT model and also the other models is really useful to learn
so I assume
about.
you on the side, you're reading all those articles on Medium, correct?
Exactly. And I dropped the link to the blog as well in the chat.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
In case you're curious.
No, it's, folks always ask if I'm going to write a book. I'm like, there's too many freaking books out there. Nobody has time to read. So everything I do is for free. Anyways, the first one, the case one, Netflix party. So I'm doing cases. In cases, I give you a little bit of data, a little information. And then in a lot of cases, I just ask you to make a provisional decision. Like, okay, with a little bit of data that you have, what do you think the right answer is? I actually already asked you for your provisional decision on Netflix party. My recollection is about 3/4 said yes. So I'm going to give you a little bit more information. There's a team of engineers. They're actually on Patreon, and they've created a Chrome extension. So you can do this today. You can watch movies and TV shows with your pals on Netflix, even if you're separated between Istanbul and Stockholm, okay? And you can see, this is Stranger Things, the movie. There's sort of a Stranger Things theme today. But you can see people are chatting. They're probably heckling each other. And this is a cool way to help connect people together in these uncertain times. And how does it work? You install this tiny little Chrome extension. You pick a video, and then you connect your friends and family. And you join everyone in magical. You're watching the same movie at the same time, and you have these ways to lightly communicate with each other. And the question I'm putting out today is actually, because of the structure of Netflix's code base and their application programming interfaces, it's straightforward for them to execute an idea like this. And by the by, it's the magic of their technology. It's also hard for other people to do, which is it's hard to copy. So if Netflix executed this, my guess is it would be a year or two before Hulu or Amazon Prime or Disney Plus executed. So I just want to give you a little bit more data, a little bit more consumer insight, really about the history of Netflix's social endeavors. So I already lightly referred to this, but there was a theory that Netflix, think about Facebook. Facebook, everything had to be more social. So at Netflix, we let friends connect with each other within the Netflix service. The idea was that they would give great movie ideas to each other, and they wouldn't want to leave the service because their friends were there. And then at the end of the day, about 5% engaged in that feature. So we killed it in 2009. We call this a barnacle. So anything that doesn't have more than 5% usage, you scrape it off. A barnacle is what gets stuck on the bottom of a rowboat, and it slows it down. What's the word in Swedish?
Havstulpan.
Oh, you said it so beautifully, Marcus. It's a better word in Swedish. And so, we scraped the barnacle. It didn't work. And then we actually had launched on Xbox a party mode. Same thing. Got to 5%. No more. The theory on 5%, if you really want to improve retention, it's better, like imagine engaging 20% of a feature. If you engage 20%, now you have a shot at actually improving retention, getting from 2% canceling every month to maybe 1.9, which would be huge. And that's the way we sort of little by little improve retention over the years, by finding things that at least 20% of our members value. And then Netflix was growing internationally, didn't have big marketing budgets, and there was something called Tell a Friend. And we killed that, or the company killed that in 2018. And it was magical. You'd have this, an idea to share with a friend, something you love watching, and you could pass it on your friend, even if they weren't on the Netflix service. It would go via Facebook or Twitter or your chat or your email. It's just magical. But again, didn't get much beyond the 5%. So here's the insight, why all these efforts failed. First is your friends have sucky movie tastes. And we thought we could solve that with algorithms, and we couldn't. And then the second is people don't want to share quite as broadly as you imagine because everybody has these guilty pleasures. I don't really like letting folks know that I really enjoy Cake Boss. Okay, I don't want to share everything. Okay, and that's really the key insight on social. So here's the question on this case. Netflix Party, this Chrome extension grew from 500,000 to 1 million usages in the last 30 days. In fact, if you go to the download page on Google for the Chrome extension, today they have 10 million downloads. This is an impressive proof of the concept of things going up and to the right in an era of COVID-19. And here's your opportunity as the product leader. You can launch Party on laptop next month, and you can be on all platforms by the end of the year. This would be an amazing thing. And the question I put to you, now that I've given you a little bit more data, will this delight in hard to copy margin enhancing ways? And the key thing in delight is, imagine if you could get to 20% of folks using it. Now you have a shot at improving margin by improving retention. The other thing is, if this was a feature that people raved about, in telling their friends, it might help to bring more members into the service. And the hard to copy stuff has to do with the structure. It's easy for Netflix to execute this, but hard for others to copy. So the real simple way is, should Netflix try social again? And they clearly keep trying. And is this the time to do it? And that's the question. So I want you all thinking now, if I were the product leader at Netflix, would I launch this or would I not launch this? And now I'm going to put it to Slido. So if you haven't tried it, just pull up your phone, the camera app, a link will magically pop up and you can answer the question. Marcus, how's it going out there?
It's interesting. So 62% think that Netflix should launch Netflix Party.
Have we changed hearts and minds? I see more no's than before. That's what I'm seeing, right? Because we were about 3/4 were leaning in before, and now it's like a 50-50. So I love that folks participate in that what I call the provisional decision, the gut and intuition. I've given them a bunch more data, and now they're beginning to lean back. Is that a fair estimation, Marcus?
Sounds fair. I mean, it's really tough, right? Because it's a kind of not a pivot, but it's a big change in strategy to have the social context from the
the bucket that this fits in. The overall theory was that this would create a better movie watching experience, but as you say, because of that social context.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no right answer to this, guys. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you what I would do, but the most important thing is the rationale behind it. So if faced with this decision, I would choose not to launch. And I just want to tell you why. Here are the learnings. The first, the reason that our provisional instinct on this is so high is because we think it would be cool. We'd love it, but we are freaks. Okay, all of us around the world are engaged in a webinar using Google Slides and Slido and Zoom, and we're not normal people. We really aren't. So we're Silicon Valley freaks and Istanbul freaks and Stockholm freaks. And this is why in doing qualitative focus groups and usability, I would never let my team work in San Francisco. We'd have to go to Memphis, Tennessee, or to Minneapolis or Providence. So you have to just sort of check your initial response because you're not a normal person. And then if you're trying to create this simple experience, it means saying no a lot, and it means cutting those barnacles as well. You're trying to build a wonderfully simple product for people around the world. And in this case, my estimation is you'd see the same result. About 5% would engage in this. And that's not enough delight to build the hard to copy advantage and to build the margin, enough to actually build retention. And at the end of the day, the biggest thing for me is, this is not, think about how hard it is. Like, forget this feature. You come home and you're sitting on a couch, with your family, and it's almost impossible to agree on a movie just in the same room at the same time. That's why Netflix enables multiple streams at the same time. And so that's just hard. And this doesn't fit with this idea of movie enjoyment made easy. So I've got another case for you. Yeah, and I've got the provisional data from all of you using Slido. And so here's the idea. Again, stranger things, stranger times. You can speed it up a little or a lot. Just imagine you can speed it up by 10% or 20%, slow it down by 10% or 20%. I'll tell you a little bit more about this. So this is in test right now, okay? And I don't know what the results are. I will make some guesses. And then, based on that data, I want to see what you guys all think. So here's the consumer insight. This is a very frequent customer request. And it basically comes from, this idea has been pioneered by YouTube and podcasts. I'm betting that almost all of us have sped up podcasts by 5 or 10%. I'm guessing that happens on YouTube. And then, if you're watching in a second language, you might slow it down. And this is the reason that this idea exists. And I can tell, Marcus, can you remember the provisional decision? It was about 50-50 on this idea.
Yeah, I think you're about right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know from that this is worth testing. Okay. And in fact, Netflix decided it was worth testing. It's out in test. And the question is, I noticed that it was put out in a very kind of limited test. They did it on mobile-only devices with their own original content in specific countries. Let's say New Zealand, okay? And they were trying to keep it under the radar. Can you guess, Marcus, of why they were trying to keep this a little bit under the radar? What were they afraid of?
No idea.
Okay. Put it to the chat. See if anybody can say, what was Netflix afraid of? I'm just kind of curious. They were concerned, and that's the reason for this sort of very limited testing. And get ready, because you're going to do some dramatic readings for me, Marcus.
Defect says piracy.
Piracy? Yeah, there's always a little bit of that, but Netflix's theory is make it wicked easy to watch movies, and you'll pay for it. Whereas, downloading illegal stuff is just kind of hard. It's a pain in the ass. Any other ideas?
Pull back?
What?
Hard to pull back?
Actually, if they roll it out, could they reverse it? I think they could. Who are they afraid of? Who would hate this idea? That's what I'm fishing for.
Yeah, afraid of content creators revolting from Vishnu.
What will the studios think? Guess what? Even in this limited rollout, the studios noticed it. You want to do some dramatic readings? You can be Judd Apatow. What did he have to say, Marcus?
Netflix, don't make me call every director and show creator on earth to fight you. I will win.
Good. I like the dramatic effect there. Here's another one for you, Marcus.
There is no way Netflix will move forward with this. That would mean that they are taking control of others' art and destroying it.
Very good. This is from Breaking Bad, Aaron Paul. So they noticed this little test and they're pissed. Okay. So we got that data as well. And then I'm going to just tease out what would the metrics be to evaluate the success. If thinking on that last case, if we could get to a place where, say, 25% of our users change their playback speed at least twice a month, that would be encouraging to me, that they find it useful. There's a meaningful shot at actually improving retention. The other proxy metric that I might use was that percentage of members that watch at least 40 hours. Today, about 60% of members watch at least 40 hours a month. Imagine you can see a result where that proxy metric moved from 60% to 62%. And imagine that you have 25% of your members in this test cell engaged in this feature. And so I don't know the results, but imagine those were the results. 25% are using at least twice a month, and you're actually taking the percentage that watch at least 40 hours a month and driving it from 60% to, say, 63%. However, the studios are going to be pissed. And you rely on them for the original content. So how do you think about this? And here's the question. Will it delight in hard to copy? It's hard to copy. This is magical. This playback speed. Think about doing it lip sync in 40 languages in margin enhancing ways. Is this enough delight to get the shot at improving retention? And then how do you feel about the studios hating this? That's the question. So I'm going to put it out there. With all the data that I've given you, you're the head of product. Would you launch custom playback speed or not? That's the question I put of you today. Do you see any changes in the results or thinking?
Definitely
Marcus?
more no. Right?
More no. Why are they leaning back, Marcus?
My assumption is because of the content creators that, I mean,
They're afraid of pissing off the studios, correct?
Exactly. But I also think from a UX perspective, this is very delicate, right? And in terms of technology as well, to get it to work in a delightful way.
I also noticed that the response was slow, which is, this is a hard one. You know, this is why you get paid the big bucks, right? These are these tough decisions, this balancing act. Okay, so I don't know what's gonna happen. So it's out in tests. You'll know when I do. If this feature shows up, then you know that they chose to roll it out. If it doesn't, who knows? So in the launch or no launch, if you put it to me, I would lean forward and I would launch. And here's the thinking. The first is, this is about customer obsession. I am maniacally focused on figuring out how to delight my customers, and I actually stick the studios in the back of my head. And I think that 25% usage is good enough to actually have a shot at improving retention. And I know this is hard to copy. And then the one thing about this at Netflix, this is very much a product decision. So the product decides the experience. It's not, the content team does not weigh in. So this is the idea of tightly aligned, that the strategy is known throughout the building, but loosely coupled. The product team makes this decision independently. They are loosely coupled from the content team, and that speeds decision-making. In converse, the content team makes the decision about what content, and the product team doesn't weigh in on that. So this is a product decision. And at the end of the day, my theory is this is about creative destruction. Storytelling has been changing for centuries with technology. You know, there were black and white films with no sound, and people were like, well, you can't have sound. And then they went to color. They said, you can have color. When Pixar came out with 3D animation and they got rid of the traditional cell animation, they said, you can't do that. It's unnatural. And this will continue. And so, you know, my theory is stay maniacally focused on the customers. So I have one last case. It's a very pretty straightforward and simple one. And I think you'll find it interesting. So here's the question. You got a bunch of Netflix members out there. They joined a year ago and they haven't used the service at all. Not at all. In fact, 0.5% of Netflix members haven't used the service in the last 12 months. So you're getting money from them and they're getting no value. Now, maybe they forgot they signed up. Maybe they didn't know they signed up. I don't know. And so you're the product leader and the idea is, hey, let's send an email notification. Would you like to cancel? And this is a testable idea. And the person, the idea is, at this point, should we auto cancel all members who don't respond? And the impact of this decision is you'd lose $100 million in the course of a year. Same question. Will this delight in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways? So you can just think about it. Is this delightful? And what is the hard to copy advantage that Netflix might be building by doing this? And we already know you're going to lose $100 million. So the question is, would you lean forward and do this despite the fact that you're going to lose $100 million because of the opportunity to delight and to build even stronger hard to copy advantage? And if so, what is the hard to copy advantage you're building? So that's the case. Here's the question. Would you launch or not launch this? And I'm going to put it to you. I've given you the data. I want to know what you would do. Well, that was a faster response, Marcus. You notice that? It was an easier decision. So everybody's saying, I'm going to lose the $100 million. Marcus, let's get some chatter. I want to know from the chat and messaging, what is the hard to copy advantage that folks believe they would be building by making the decision to lose 100 million bucks? Can you see some responses?
Brand from
Fantastic, right? That's
Gustav.
music in my ear.
Yeah, building trust.
Building trust, building the brand. It's amazing, okay? Okay, so what would I do? So this is a real case. 2 weeks ago, Netflix did this, okay? And the learnings that I want you to get from it is the hard to copy advantage that you're building is in fact the brand. You guys are impressed, at the company, like, oh, did they do this? They really did this? Like, makes you feel even better about the brand. And then it's worth spending. It's not exactly how it works, the 100 million bucks, but you're investing 100 million bucks and doing the right thing and building a world-class brand and ethics, just doing the right thing. Now, by the way, punk startups can't afford to do this. Does this feel like a high stakes or low stakes decision to you, Marcus? This decision to lose 100 million bucks.
Given Netflix's size, I don't think it's a high stakes decision.
There you go. So it has all to do with the magnitude. It's 100 million against 20 billion in revenue for the year. And the other reasons it's a low stakes decision is it's totally reversible. So you could choose not to do this, next year, okay? And most of us, we feel like every decision we make, but if it's low in magnitude, it's only 100 million bucks against 20 billion. And if it's reversible, by definition, it's a low stakes decision. All right, so I'm going to bring it home for you with a few conclusions. Just remember, you're an explorer. You're trying to figure out the route from the Far East, from China to the Mediterranean and on to London. You're trying to find the route to the sea. And so I just bring you back to that idea that strategy is a route to continuing power in a significant market. And then these product strategies are these hypotheses on how you'll delight customers in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways. Remember that list of green, yellow, and red. Notice that half of those were failed hypotheses. Half of those product strategies worked and half didn't. In fact, only about a third were truly powerful because they did all three at the same time. The job is hard, but if you get it right a third of the time, amazing things happen. And I shared a bunch of frameworks that enable you to combine the discipline, and that's what product strategy does, with the chaos of invention and not really knowing what the future looks like and what will work in the eye of a customer or not. And then all of this helps you to communicate an inspired vision of the future. And that's really the coolest thing about all of this. So I got a juicy quote for you. If you want to build a ship, don't drum up the people to gather wood, divide the work, and give orders. Teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. And this is a lovely quote. It talks about how powerful that inspired vision of the future can be, by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, Le Petit Prince. Now, you've just heard my bad high school French. So with that, I'll say thank you. And if you know me, I'm not quite done. There really is just one more thing I'd like to do, and we'll answer questions. Sometimes I feel like I'm like a street performer, doing my best to breathe fire. You can see the crowds there. And then all street performers do this incredibly stupid thing. They pass the hat. And that's when everybody skulks off. I do too, because they're asking for money. I'm passing the hat, but I am not asking for money. I would love, 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 love your feedback. So right now you can hold up your phone as though you're taking a photo. It'll pop up a SurveyMonkey link. The scale is 0 sucks and 10 is great. Pick any number you like. 0 sucks, 10 is great. I'd love to know one idea that you have about how to make this talk better. And rather, one idea that's good about the talk and one idea about how you can make it better. And this is my 516th survey result. So this is how I engage in high cadence experimentation. These are my proxy metrics. It's incredibly helpful. I'm going to switch screens. It's the same QR code as before, so you can capture this one as well. But if you have an Android device and with Lollipop and it didn't work, Marcus is dropping in links now. He'll drop in a bunch of links. And also, if you go to gibsonbiddle.com, I put a link at the very top of that first page. Provides you all the links that we're talking about, all in one place. The PDF of the presentation is available there, but Marcus is dropping links for you right now in that series, How to Define Your Product Strategy. And Marcus is also sharing a link that we're going to spend on September 29th and 30th. We're going to do 2 4-hour online workshops. First 4 hours on the 29th and the next on the 30th. And this will be like my 15th online product strategy workshop. It's great fun. If you bring a team, you can work on the product strategy for your company. But if you're on your own, we'll team you with a company and you work together on a product you know and love. It could be Spotify, or it could be Shopify, or whatever company you'd like. So with that, I will say thank you. I saw the upfront references to Tiger King. I don't know if I should confess it. It might be in the guilty pleasure realm. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions. We'll answer questions off of Slido and the chat and messaging. And I'm going to stop sharing so you can see me. And let's do some Q&A. You got some questions for me, Marcus?
Yes, we sure do. And please use Slido to enter questions.
By the way, I don't have a hard stop, but I totally understand, especially given the gorgeous weather in Stockholm, if you choose to leave at 60 minutes past the hour. Yeah. But I'll stay here forever.
Yearning for the glass of rosé wine. Okay, so we have a question from Anonymous, and this correlates
I've met that person.
Yeah, you met Anonymous. Since this relates to my field of work as well, so could you give some insight into how you work with product discovery?
Yeah. I mean, I gave you some hints. The key thing is you always have 4 sources of data. You have qualitative, the usability and focus groups. You have survey data. I just launched a survey asking people what they think. You always have the existing data and you're digging in the dirt for patterns and trends. And then the big dog is you can A/B test. So with any company, I'm trying to get as much sources of consumer insight through those 4 sources. And then every company's different, but at the end of the day, I have a hypothesis. So in this case, the hypothesis that a social experience around social, Netflix party, will improve the watching experience and drive that proxy metric up and to the right. Percent that watched at least 40 hours drive from 60 to 63. It'll be useful. They'll use it at least twice a month. That's my hypothesis. So then I will spend time in qualitative and focus groups. In this case, my guess is in a normal area like Providence, Rhode Island, I would have discovered that people were kind of confused by this. And that's tricky because when you hear stuff in qual, you can't really accept it as the answer because you've got kind of random people. So if there was a lot of belief in the idea, then I would push it out into A/B test. Recognize in this case, I had as a proxy, I had data from the small team at Patreon. So I was looking at their download data and the percent that were being used. But at the end of the day, I applied judgment, over 15 years in this space of saying, this is going to be yet another 5%er. Anyways, the key insight is you've got those 4 sources of data. Make sure you have a hypothesis, and then you use those 4 sources to prove or disprove your data over time, your intuition. And then succeed or fail, you're always learning something. My judgment has been fueled. Like, I'm very wary of social strategies in the context of movies for the reasons that I shared with you. But keep trying. Thanks for the question. Anonymous.
Yeah, a question from Kevin. Has Netflix considered carrying or creating music content, i.e. music videos or concert films, etc.?
Yeah. So Netflix has considered a zillion ideas over the years. One thing you might notice is I'm not very competitive. So, at the end of the day, I'm trying to figure out how to delight customers in these hard to copy, margin enhancing ways and playing our game. At Netflix, our game, it was all about convenience, selection, and value. Make it wicked easy, give as broad a selection as possible. And I know that you want everything, right? But if the price goes much beyond $15 a month, you're like, I don't want it. So we contemplated doing community-based content, chose not to do it. We we contemplated letting you download and pay extra for new releases, chose not to do it. So the short answer, I never say never. Clearly Spotify's done a great job of going from music into podcasts, right? But my guess is Netflix will continue to play its game. Let YouTube do the short form and community-based content. You can watch a lot of music videos there or on Vivo. And frankly, the economics aren't particularly good there. Most of those folks are doing it for free. The artists and in the business of music, it's all about the concert. So, and my short answer is likely not in the next 5 years.
Thanks for that. And we have another interesting question, again from Anonymous. What type of...
It's hard to say who you are in Slido. Right. We're just joking around. Go ahead.
No, it disappeared here. Hold on, get it. It was uploaded. It was uploaded. So how do you empower people in non-managerial roles, so developers, designers, etc., to contribute or even drive product strategy?
Yeah, so one thing about Netflix was Netflix is full of teachers. I'm clearly a teacher. Reed Hastings is a teacher. He was teaching math in Zimbabwe. Patty McCord ran HR. She's a teacher. We spent a lot of time helping people understand the business. And the most important context that we could provide was strategy. So I think it's awesome for every person in the building, even if you started, right out of school, to learn about this stuff. Because you want to be able to speak in the language that I call them muckety mucks, but executives understand. And really understand how to drive real value in an organization. So in Netflix, we had monthly strategy meetings in each of the swim lanes. I had 10 swim lanes. A swim lane might be the swim lane for better movie watching experience. The team that's focused on getting to ultra HD and even better sound, and should they be doing 3D immersive experiences. Every month with designers and data scientists and engineers, we would talk about this. And even if you were young in your career, a person would say, hey, here's my hypothesis, okay? And if they could say, here are the ways that I think we can explore using those 4 sources of data, here are the proxy metrics that I think I will move, like, wow, that's a powerful voice at the table, okay? And recognize at Netflix, you were hiring people that could think and do. I had director level product leaders, and nobody worked for them. And they were expected to articulate a strategy in their swim lane and then help teams execute as well. Anyways, read those essays. I think you'll get a kick out of them. I'm trying to demystify strategy because it doesn't need to be mystical in any way.
And speaking of strategy versus mission, what is your definition? So we heard your definition of a strategy with that quote, but regarding mission, what's your definition?
Yeah, actually, there's a good, just formally, Jeff Weiner was the CEO of LinkedIn. He just stepped down. Just Google his name and his definitions. So there's no precise definition for any of these things. So just make sure that you as a team can sort of agree on what you mean. I will say, at Netflix, initially the idea was our mission was to connect people with movies that they'll love. That was the idea. But we actually didn't find it, it was helpful, in the vein of personalization. Get to know your movie taste, get to know the movies, connect you with movies you love. Great. But it wasn't that helpful or inspiring. At some point we just realized, okay, we're in the business of entertainment. Our job is to create a better experience that lets people be entertained and let them not worry about COVID-19 quite as much, et cetera. So it wasn't that helpful to us as a company, which is why I don't focus a lot on defining the mission. Facebook, they're trying to connect people all over the world, and you can tell they're getting beat up on whether they're doing it. Okay, so short answer, mission is the long-term reason that you go to work every day. It's intended to be the inspiring thing that helps you build a truly great company over time that's going to somehow dent the universe. But you can tell I don't spend much time worrying or thinking about the mission, and I spend a lot of time worrying and thinking about the strategy and the proxy metrics and how the projects and tactics roll up against it. My other thing is I actually find that if you can define the positioning and the brand of a company, that's incredibly helpful to product leaders, because then they know what the product wants to be when it grows up. So my goal was to build a product where movie enjoyment was made easy. That was fundamentally more helpful than the discussion about mission for me. And that's why I tend to help product leaders understand what positioning and branding are. And those are two of the models that I do in the 2 4-hour product strategy workshops. I find it really helpful. It also helps build teamwork between brand and product, which is notoriously, there's a lot of fighting often between brand and product peeps. Okay, this is me reflecting on things that worked for me. Okay, I tend to perpetuate tools and models and frameworks that I think are helpful, and the reason I'm not aggressive on mission is I haven't found it generally as helpful as some of these other tools and models. My experience only.
Thank you for that. So there's a question regarding data. So how to evaluate data when all customers are not worth equally? So whales versus regular users. If 75% of regular users like it, but 25% of whales dislike it, launch or not. So it would be interesting to talk about whales, but I think you get the gist of the question, like in terms of weighing different user groups and so on.
Yeah, my job is to delight all customers. Having said that, you're pointing to some specific dynamics where, essentially, to simplify, you have paying members and you have free members, right? So Zynga, 2% of their members paid a lot of money and 98% of the members paid almost nothing, right? So the way I think about it, when I'm thinking about, first, I will be explicit about, I'll probably have a product leader that's maniacally focused on creating value for free members, and then a number that are creating value for the paid. And then it's explicit about the value of the free members. It's going to be each free member is worth whatever. Lifetime value might be $1 for Zynga. I have no idea. But there's sort of a mathematical relationship. But recognize this conversation is all about creating margin and building a business. And you're trying to figure out where the leverage is there. So the Zynga experience, for instance, all these gamers could buy extra tools sorry, I'm being dated. It was like Farmville, so I can I could harvest my crops faster. Tons of experimentation with, what will people pay for? That's not unlike, Netflix, like tons of experimentation with how to create ongoing business success. We tested advertising. We actually did advertising for 2 years. We were selling used discs. There's ongoing price and plan testing forever. I talked about how margin enhancement works in the context of right-sizing original content. The point is, in all of these business, there has to be ongoing business experimentation forever. And most people make the mistakes of just stopping because they think that the way their business works is good enough. It never is. So that's true whether you have a free and paid model or not. It's just math, like in that 25% you could sort of loosely model things and you could, roughly give a sense of the value of a free versus paid. At the end of the day, you're just trying to figure out how much effort and energy should we put into which thing, which is, a great conversation to have. And I that's what happens in these quarterly product strategy meetings that I do. And I wrote an essay on that. That's like number 8 in that product strategy series. Read that and then tell me what you think.
Thank you. And another question, how should Netflix respond to QB that you mentioned in your presentation as well?
Yeah, it's quick bites. That's a wild story. They launched into the pandemic. It's a mobile-only offering. All the original content was is 10 minutes long. You know, it's series episodic. It's meant to be, you know, like you're sitting in your doctor's office and you can watch it, right? Just these little moments. So the interesting thing is they launched in the pandemic, and nobody, like, we're all spending time on our laptops and TVs. We have the time, right? We're not on subways. So that was bad luck for them. You know, the short answer is Netflix is in the game of episodic TV and movies. The long form stuff is working exceptionally well. They're on all platforms, all devices, all TV screens. Quibi is not, you know, generally Netflix will just stay focused on playing its game. The more interesting one is how will Netflix respond to Disney Plus? That went from 0 to 50 million members in its first 6 months. It took Netflix 18 months to get there. 18 years, forgive me, 18 years to get from 0 to 50 million. And that one, they're just acknowledging Disney's doing a great job. And then they're just nicely saying that, of course, people are going to subscribe to Disney Plus if they have kids and families. They'll enjoy their service for $8 and our service for $15. This is not a streaming war. This is not one company takes it all. And we're just going to continue to create overwhelming value for our customers, of which we have 183 million today, and it's going to get better. And they are maniacally focused on how do we deliver more original content where they have the rights to everything all around the world in 40 languages instantly through their magical lip syncing. It's amazing. Anyways, so they're probably not spending any time thinking or worrying about Quibi right now.
And
are we at one more question time?
You want one more?
No, we'll do two more.
Whatever you want. Whatever you want.
No, it's whatever you want. Let's do it. Two more.
All right. So we had two more. And maybe a question from my end as well. We'll see. So we're talking about Netflix. We're talking about a fantastically successful company. But if you are a product manager at a more traditional company, maybe not even in the digital space, so what would be the kind of key takeaways from this talk and your experience, perhaps talking to product leaders from those types of companies in relation to product strategy?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I mean, with Agile, et cetera, there's a lot of focus on how people build stuff. That's important. I'm also trying to get the conversation about what should we build and why, okay?
Yes.
The key thing is most of us in building anything, we tend to stick our heads down and we execute like crazy, okay? And I nicely encourage people to put their head up and think a little bit longer term, okay? Like that GLEE model, actually, it's crazy. It encourages you to think 5, 10, 15, 20 years out in the future. And you do that because if you think long term, anything is possible, truly. So I guess two answers. Spend a little bit of time thinking about the long term, okay? That will be incredibly helpful. And very few people spend much time on the long term. And then the second is, you know, no matter what you're doing, strategy is trying to answer the question about how you're going to build, you know, that long-term, hard to copy, significant market. You know, my language is delight customers in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways. But that's where Helmer's definition, you know, in building the Silk Road is pretty helpful. So think long-term and have a strategy.
All right, my question. So you ended with that quote by Antoine Saint-Exupéry. Sorry for my
we both say
French. And I studied French for like 7 years, so yeah. That aside, okay. But we're talking about that's the sea, right? And to go to a new place and to empower people to understand the bigger picture and set sails somewhere else, right?
Yep.
What would be, from a communication perspective, you're a product leader and you want to paint that picture where we're going.
Yep.
So what are the key tools? Maybe tools is not the right word, but I think you get what I'm saying. Like what should I think about as a product manager to paint that picture in the best possible way?
let's just imagine I'm coming into a new company to run product. What I'll do is I'll work with just one of the first swim lanes, whichever one. This is also how do you achieve change? At Netflix, I focus most of my energy and effort in the first year on the personalization swim lane. Okay? And I actually did just what we talked about today. I said, okay, what's your long-term vision? What are you hoping to do? What's your hypothesis? Their hypothesis was that through personalization, they can improve retention. They had a very specific proxy metric, which is the percentage of members that rated at least 50 movies in the course of their first 2 months. This idea was if people rated a lot, they did it because they valued something they would get in return. And it was a proxy for they valued personalization. This was the very beginning. And then they had some theories and hypotheses about how to get there. So fundamentally, get to know the person's taste and get to know the data around the movie, and then create lots of presentation layer and algorithm techniques to connect those two. So they had a strategy in their swim lane, in the personalization swim lane. It was all about these experiments to get taste data, these experiments to get structured data around movies, and lots of different presentation algorithms. And this was articulated in their product strategy. And so I did that swim lane by swim lane at a high level product strategy. But my point is, keep it simple. What's your high level hypothesis? What's the one metric you're going to push to be successful? And what are your theories and hypotheses about how you're going to push that metric up and to the right over time? And then build the 4-quarter roadmap that gives a little sense of how the projects play out over time. I did that SMT, have a strategy, but have a proxy metric for each of your strategies within the swim lane. And most of us are really good at generating ideas about projects and tactics, okay? But organize it, against these strategies, because now your hypothesis is clear, and organize it so each of the strategies has a proxy metric. So it actually took us 10 years to prove that personalization was good at Netflix. We drove that proxy metric from 2% all the way up to 30%. 30% of our members gave us at least 50 pieces of data about their movie taste in the first 2 months. That's extraordinary, right? The 10-year part was it took us 10 years to prove that retention actually improved. This is hard work, okay? But it was because of that one proxy metric from going to 2 to 30 that gave us the hope and the commitment to keep pounding on this in the long term. Anyways, all of this is outlined in that how to define your product strategy. I think people will find it incredibly helpful.
Yes, and please join the course as well, the product strategy course. Yeah. So 2 half days.
29, 4 hours. I saw people asking how do they sign up. That's a good sign.
Right. Yeah. So 29th and the 30th of September.
Yeah, I do this because I love it, and for me, it's teaching, which is awesome. And I'm trying to be helpful to product leaders all over the world. Go.
Yes, and this has been so valuable to really get to know the Netflix way of structuring strategy and your thoughts on working with product strategy and so on. So thank you very much, Gibson. And you have the link to all the goodies, and we will also email you a recording of the presentation and also information relating to the course, and perhaps a discount to all of you who have joined as well.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, so with that said, just thank you very much, Gibson. This has been so valuable and insightful.
Go enjoy the sunny day in Stockholm, and fun to have you, Istanbul, and all the many other countries as well. Thanks so much for having me, Marcus. Bye. I could see all your thanks in the chat, so thanks so much for that. It's awesome. Goodbye.